Hello folks, this is Sue Bell from Network Empire and ThemeZoom.com, and today I want to talk to you about co-occurrence and latent semantic indexing and latent semantic analysis, because all of these keywords have a lot of hype in the internet marketing world, mostly because all of these ideas have got some pretty thick mathematics. They describe mathematical concepts that aren't the easiest thing to understand, and because they're not easy to understand, they tend to get either overhyped or debunked. So I want to just try to explain co-occurrence today. Co-occurrence we use in Kraken, and explain to you exactly what it is and how we use it and why it's important. Alright, so I've got here a drill in Kraken where my seed term, the keyword that I drilled into to begin this drill, was online marketing training. And if you come down here, you notice we have this column called co-occurrence. And some of these keywords have got 100% co-occurrence. Usually that's not the norm. I mean, it can be the norm on the front screen, but oftentimes you've got things that are 10%, 50%, 8%, even smaller. So online marketing training isn't going to have a co-occurrence because it's going to be 100% co-occurrent with itself, right? And so I would just want to take, for example, two additional keywords we've got here. Marketing classes at 10%, and online marketing class, similar words but different, at 60%, almost 60%. Okay, so let's just take a look at it from a visual perspective for a moment with graphics, because I think everybody thinks better that way. So corpus. Let's start with this idea of a corpus. It's a fancy word for a collection of documents. So a corpus can be anything. It can be any collection of documents. And typically when you're talking about latent semantic analysis, the body of documents is pretty generic. And that doesn't work so well for keyword research, because when you have a huge body of work and it's really generic, then when you're talking about something that's very niche-y, you don't get good results. It's not going to show like all of the different kinds of keywords, all of the different niche keywords in that niche aren't going to show up as being very different from each other. So what we did with our corpus is we collect all of the pages from the top 100 results in Yahoo and the top 100 results in Google. We take all of that content and we make the corpus out of that. So now the corpus is very specific to your seed term. And so then the other keywords, they pop a whole lot more. Like the distinction between those keywords gets a whole lot bigger. So let's come to our next picture for a second. Within this corpus, you have the seed term. Now, the seed term is never contained on all of the pages. Even so, we don't show the co-occurrence. It's usually, I don't know, it can be radical, right? It can be maybe 70, 80%. It depends on, it depends a lot on the niche and what the search engines have deemed to be important about that term, and because they're synonyms and the search engines are really pretty intelligent about other ideas that represent that term. Sometimes, especially as you get away from the top 20, you'll find more and more pages that don't even contain the seed word. They just contain that idea. So typically your seed term is considerably smaller number than the entire corpus. Alright, so then back at the ranch, back at our drill here, we've got online marketing training, which is our seed term, and the first keyword that we're going to compare it to is marketing classes. So if we look back at our graphic again, keyword A now represents marketing classes, and this part here, this overlap area, this is the co-occurrence. These are the number of pages that contain the seed term that also contain our keyword. So as you can see, we've got 10%, roughly 10% of the 108,000 pages for online marketing training also contain the keyword marketing classes. So that kind of makes sense when you think about marketing classes and online marketing training. There could be a lot of things that have to do with marketing classes that aren't necessarily doing with anything online. So I can see where, you know, this isn't going to be a huge intersection. 10% is actually, I think, quite a good number given those two ideas. Alright, so now let's go on to talk a little bit about the next keyword. We've got here keyword B, and you can see like if these circles are the size of the competing pages, where we had roughly the same size for A or for our seed term and for keyword A, keyword B now is actually a little bit smaller. I don't remember whether or not keyword B is actually any smaller over here. It's actually a little bit bigger, but that's okay. What I wanted to point out in my illustration was the keyword can actually be, like the conversation about the keyword or the numbers of competing pages about the keyword can actually be smaller, but the intersection can at the same time be larger, which means keyword B is actually more important to this theme represented by keyword by the seed term. Okay, so if we come back and look at this again for a second, we can see that this idea of online marketing class is obviously going to be a whole lot more relevant to online marketing training. So I picked online marketing because I figured it was a pretty easy concept. Most people have got an idea about online marketing training and online marketing classes. So it'd be a good example for you to see what the intersection is. But when you start getting into some really technical topics where you might not be a subject matter expert, having the co-occurrence tell you how important one keyword is to that market versus another keyword can become quite a really cool thing. Alright, so I've got one more thing that I want to show you about this, and that is the possibility that one keyword can be entirely contained inside the other keyword. In other words, this intersection can be 100%. And there's two ways that this can go, actually. It can be 100% that way, or let me just show you the other way that it can be 100%. You can have a keyword that actually dominates the other keyword, right? So it completely hides the other keyword. And therefore, all of the keywords, all of the pages are going to contain your seed keyword. All right, so those are the two options. You can either have a huge number of competing pages, or it could have a smaller number of competing pages. And in that case, they would both be 100% co-occurrent. All of the pages, in the one case, all of the pages in keyword C are going to have the parent theme in it, and in the other one where the circle is really big, all of the seed terms pages are going to have the other. It's getting really hard to explain. Let me come back this way. Okay, so if you have, like this keyword's 685,000, and you've got 100% co-occurrence, that means every single page that talks about online marketing training is also talking about email marketing training and SEO training classes and these kinds of concepts. All right, so if we look at, you have this opportunity here to show all keywords, where you're going to see keywords that aren't as important to the market. And when we look at some of those, you'll get some of these examples over here where you've got the smaller numbers of competing pages. So let's just go find some of those. And you'll see here where you've got smaller numbers of competing pages and you've only got like 4% intersection. Or and the reason this is going to be 4% intersection, like if you turn around and looked at it the other way and you drill into selling online, it's a distinct possibility that selling online is going to be 100% co-occurrent with online marketing training, but it's only 4% the other way around because it's got such a small number of competing pages. So it's interesting in that a keyword, just to come back to our image here, a keyword can, every single page that represents keyword C can have your seed term on it, but the numbers of competing pages are so small, it is such a teeny niche, that it's not really important to your seed term. So that's why we look at it this way around. That's how you get some of these really small numbers. They're still going to show up for one reason or another, like you can get a really small 0.2%, right, online newsletters. But because the numbers of competing pages are so high, because the cost per click is so high, and because there is an intersection that was significant for one reason or another, and we look at co-occurrence and we look at latent semantic relationships and we look at the number of uses on your competitors' your top competitors' pages to determine how important we really think a keyword is to the keyword that you've drilled into. So this screen only represents co-occurrence, but there are lots of other things going on in the background. So that might be why you end up getting a keyword like online newsletters on your screen. Now, to me, if I'm going to sit here and think about it for a minute, online newsletters is probably one of those keywords that appears quite frequently because of an opt-in, right? Because we're in an online marketing genre market where everybody's going to be conscious about collecting opt-ins, and so you're going to get this keyword online newsletters, even so it might not be incredibly germane to the online marketing training, or it might be an important aspect of online marketing training. So that's where you have to dig just a little bit more when you get a really low percentage like that, and like normally you wouldn't even see it. You have to go into this second screen where you show all of the keywords in order to see those types of keywords. But when you dig a little bit deeper and you go onto the second screen, then you want to investigate a little bit to see whether or not those keywords are truly paths that you want to go down. Sometimes you find them interesting because of their cost per click, but when you really dig into it, you find the keywords behind it aren't addressing the pain that you want to solve with your market. Okay, so that's co-occurrence and how we figure it out and what you can do with it, how you can take advantage of that. And the one other thing that I want to point out is that recently, as frequently as about a week ago, maybe just a few days ago, Google got one of their patents all the way through the patent office. Now, it takes about 18 months to get a patent from the time that Google submits a patent until it's actually awarded them. So these are concepts that were put out 18 months ago. But they did have a patent that came out recently. Here it is, and we'll just go through it briefly because it doesn't really talk about rankings per se, except that it's talking about the evaluation of substitute terms. So what they're saying here, we'll just try it. I hate the language in these patents, but we'll try to get through it, all right? Is that they're talking about a way that computer programs can evaluate substitution terms or substitute terms. One of the methods includes selecting a first term, like a parent term, and a candidate substitute term, like keyword A, for the first term. All right, so now it's going to compare these two terms. And a first vector is generated. That's a mathematical way of looking at the documents to determine what the co-occurrence frequencies are between these two terms and how they occur in search queries that include the first term, the parent term, right? So a second vector is generated for the candidate substitution, also using a co-occurrence frequency, where it looks for terms that occur in the search queries that include candidate B, the keyword A, okay? And if it finds that there's a relationship between those two, then it considers a substitution. It considers the candidate to be a possible substitute. So that's interesting, but let's look at another one. Okay, so this one was from just a few days earlier, and this is the systems and methods for improving searching. And what they're talking about here, methods and systems for improved searching, are described. Okay, that was lovely jargon again. All right, so let's come down to the guts of it, because this is where it gets a whole lot better. A computer implemented method, blah, 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 obtaining in a service device. Okay, a plurality of the first search results responsive to a first search query. All right, so we've got our seed term, right? And the seed term brings back a set of results. And the plurality of the first search result being ranked in an order, generating a second search query comprising the first search query and a synonym of the term in the first search query. All right, so that's why we were over here a minute ago just talking about synonyms. All right, so now that we know how they figure out synonyms, we come over here and we realize, to make a long story short, what they're doing is they're taking a look at the results of keyword A. They're finding a synonym, keyword B. They're taking a look at the results there, and they're finding the results that are in both keyword A and keyword B, and they're promoting those results, right? So in other words, they're not just doing a single term lookup anymore. They're doing multiple term lookups when they go to provide you as SERPs. And if your site is ranked for synonyms, it's got a better chance of getting boosted on the SERPs results that's actually given to the person who's doing the search. So this is why when you're back over here looking at Kraken and you're trying to decide what it is that you want to rank for, what keywords you want to include in your website, you want to think about synonyms. You want to think about as many different ways of expressing your idea as you possibly can. So you want to look for these ideas that have got high co-occurrence, and you want to try and include those on the same page. So think about your pane. You have to think about the article that you're actually trying to write, but as you go to craft that synonymic set for your page, you want to include keywords that express those ideas in as many different ways as possible that have got high co-occurrence, so that when Google does the search results on both of those queries, it's like, hey, I found it here and I found it here, so we're going to take your site and we're going to promote it higher. All right, so that's the why behind co-occurrence and why we have it in Kraken and how you can use it to make better websites. This is Sue Bell from Network Empire and ThemeZoom.com.